I was born in the West. The fault lines, they adorn my wrist and neck. You'll never shake me, my darling, I'll never show you any of my breath. My mother lay down near the street lamps turned upon her like a crook. Your father will drown here, my darling, if you don't give him back the breath you took. And she's taken on your ailments, traded time to kill all your past with presents. Make my daddy ill. You're in love with your city, my darling. It's filled with those you never thought you'd know. There are babies, they're sleeping on subways, their eyes aligned in salty little rows. In my bed built on pigeon nests, stilts, I close my eyes. Wish that you were here, 'cause the ringing's so loud round my shoulders, and you find fucked up ways inside my ears. And she's taken on your ailments, traded time to kill all your past with presents. I make my daddy ill. And the laziest men in your city make cat calls of the benches they forsook. I run my eyes round your shoulders and try to transcribe letters of your looks. And if you lay me down near the sunrows of books so quiet, I will read aloud in hopes that I find you amongst them, your backbones bound like faces in a crowd. I've taken on your ailments, traded time to kill all your past with presents. I make my daddy ill.
Hi friends, my name is Mackenzie, also known as Emtothethird on Instagram, Ravelry, and YouTube, and this is episode 19 of the Emtothethird Knitting Podcast. It's also a special episode because it marks the 1-year anniversary of this podcast. When I realized that, I knew it was coming up. It kind of still took me by surprise. A year is such a marker of time and so much happens in a year. For instance, I would not have predicted that we'd be in the middle of a pandemic. Who would have thunk? So last year at the end of March, I was fired from the knitting store that I had worked at for 4 years. I had transferred in with a new owner who had purchased the store about a year prior, and I had joined that new staff, which was a lot of the same staff, but got on board with that sort of transition as I was finishing up library school. And library school had been really tough and trying for a lot of reasons, and I was just like, I had thrown my hands up and was like, I don't know if I'm gonna need a forever break and that this just isn't the profession for me, or if I just need time to kind of like recharge, because it was an environment that was challenging in the fact that it was so unchallenging. Librarianship is an extremely white field, as I think, arguably a lot of professional fields are, but librarianship is about 85% white, and that demographic was absolutely present in the students that I was in school with, and especially in that librarianship is so focused on community service and preservation of memory and dissemination of information. It feels so wrong to not be talking about social justice in that circumstance. And yet, it just wasn't very present in the curriculum. And I was very disheartened by that. So after sort of advocating and doing a lot of additional social justice work, personally and with groups of students that I met and groups of professionals, I was just super done. And so I was really thrilled for the opportunity to work as much as I could at my own business that I had started during my last year of grad school, and to work at the local yarn and fabric store. And so I did that, and there were some issues between us that I don't feel the management did a very good job in addressing, and the result of that was for me to be fired in the middle of a shift very suddenly and with no warning. After that, despite the fact that I sort of knew that there were issues, that was not the course of action that I thought was going to be taken, and I was sort of understandably just like defeated, and my self-confidence totally took a hit. So I tried to take it like in stride as best as I could, and I really did start focusing on my business. But I started looking for library jobs. I looked at local yarn and fabric stores because they reached out to me. But ultimately it didn't quite feel right, and et cetera, et cetera. So during that time of transition that I really felt like I was sort of like shoved into the deep end of a pool. I started this podcast, which was something that it just felt really scary to do. But at the same time, it was in the midst of all of the social justice conversations that had started happening in the knitting world. And I was just like, if no one is creating the content that I want to see, which is by queer people, fat people, people of color, I was someone who was confident in my knitting ability, who knew the industry really well, and had been having these critiques of it for a long time. And so I threw my hat in the ring, and I've been doing it now for a year. And since I started it, like, a lot has changed. I do now have a full-time library job, which, little wackadoodle in the middle of this pandemic. But man, if this had happened while I was sort of in that transition phase, things would have looked a lot different for me. So yeah, it's just been like, I spent a lot of time reflecting on the last year, and I really just hope to kind of keep growing and encouraging others to also maybe throw their hat in the ring, because I can tell you that there's not enough of the type of content in the knitting podcast world that I wish there was. One of the things that I'm most proud of and excited about is the Slack community that I've created of podcast viewers and friends. You know, that's been just like invaluable. During this shelter in place time, we have been meeting every Monday, aside from like 2, and, you know, knitting and chatting together, and that's been like just so special to me. And so thank you everyone who has been joining me for those. If you're interested in joining the Slack community and hearing about when these virtual knit nights happen, definitely click the link below. We'd really love to have you. It's such a great group of people, and you know, so there's a couple of things I want to mention or discuss before jumping into the knitting and fiber and sewing goodness. So one is that at the beginning of my last video, I mentioned that if you are not subscribed yet, it helps me and other content creators out so much. So if you like this video, if you've watched other videos that you like of mine, then please hit that subscribe button. My goal is for the end of this year to have 1,000 subscribers, and it would be amazing if you would like to contribute to that number. So that's just my little plug about subscribing. It's like very easy and low commitment for you, but it helps us out a lot in terms of the algorithm and making sure that other people get to see this content that you are enjoying. So please do that. I would greatly appreciate it. The second talking point that I want to mention, I would be remiss to not discuss the current murder by the police of George Floyd in Minneapolis and the subsequent protests and unrest. So the first thing is, if you are a non-Black person of color, or if you are a white person, I'd really love for you to stay with me for this conversation. If you are one of my Black viewers, then I'm gonna put a little timestamp here that you can skip over, because I know I've been doing a lot of work and needing an escape, and I hope that I can provide this for you. And so yeah, please skip ahead while I talk to everyone else really quickly about things that I am doing and things that they can do. It's not very often that I can look at examples that the knitting world has set for how you, viewer, and me, myself, can show up to be accomplices to our Black friends, neighbors. But these conversations have been happening in the knitting world, as many of you know, for much longer than just this most recent murder of a Black man. So some of the ways that I am contributing and that I would encourage you to contribute would be, I donated $25 to the Massachusetts Bail Fund, and this is a particularly important time because we're trying to get protesters out of jail, especially amid the concerns around the coronavirus. So if you're watching this and you haven't yet, I would encourage you, I'll leave a list down below to find either your local bail fund or the Minneapolis bail fund. Again, I donated $25. It would be amazing if you match me. If we're in support of protesters, which I strongly believe we should be, then we should be ensuring that they are safe and taken care of. The other piece of this is, if you're really struggling with what type of resources to begin to think about this or kind of go on to the next step, I would be very interested in helping you find them, and maybe even having a discussion about what you're reading, because I know You know, I'm a librarian. I know there's a lot of resources out there, and they are for different levels of, you know, involvement. So if you maybe have never talked about it before and you're just beginning to understand that you need to step up to be a better accomplice, I've been seeing some folks, people of color, black and non-black, asking for light-skinned and white people to be accomplices. And so if you are kind of just like starting to again understand what's going on and know that you need to step up, there are very specific resources that I would suggest to you. If you are stuck on talking to a family member, I have resources for that too. So again, down below, I'm going to post some links for, I'm not going to post many, I'm just going to post a couple that I have found really helpful, and I hope that you will find helpful, because these are hard conversations, but they are absolutely necessary. And the exhaustion that I am feeling talking to family and the students I work with, you know, are nothing compared to the constant anxiety and fear that our Black community members, neighbors, and friends are feeling constantly. So it's so important for us to do this work, and I would really encourage you, if you have not engaged already, to start thinking about maybe picking up a book or, you know, engaging in those hard conversations. So with that, I think it is time to talk about knitting. So we haven't spoken in a little bit of time. Maybe like 3 weekends ago, I actually recorded a whole episode, and I was very excited about it. But like in the last 20 minutes, the fire alarm in the apartment building next to me started going off, and I was like, oh, and I like had a window open because it was warm, so I like closed the window and kept going, but it was so loud. So I was like, I had edited most of it, and the last like bit, which I had crammed a lot of info and content into, was like a no-go. So here I am, and because it's been such a long time, I have a lot to share with you. So I think that's very exciting, and especially since this is like the anniversary episode, I think that that feels appropriate. So last time we spoke, I was like on the cusp of finishing. Now I can't remember what was that recording that I did 3 weeks ago and like the actual last episode. I actually think that the last episode I was like, I am never gonna finish the sweaters that I'm working on, like I can't look at them anymore, but I have finished both of them. So the first one is the Cotton Grass Jumper by the Petite Knitter, and this is out of the yarn that I had milled. I know, right? It's so cute. For Emtothethird Yarn Co. And it is called Liminal, and it is a 2-ply DK weight. It's a blend of Romney and Merino, and it was milled for me in New York at Bat and Kill Fiber Mill by MJ Packer, and I dyed this amazing color that is called Pearl Jam, P-U-R-L, because I'm really funny. And I made it short sleeve, kind of cropped, and man, I really like it. It is way too warm already to wear it. If camping were on the forecast, I think this would be perfect to wear at night around the campfire, but because the whole state of Massachusetts is shut down, there's no camping. So I'm holding on to hope that it will not be so humid like for the rest of spring, and that maybe I'll be able to wear it a couple of times, but I don't know. I made some modifications to this that I've talked about in a previous episode, so I will link that up here, and you can go check that out if you're interested. I also have some notes on my Ravelry project page, which I will link down there. And I'm also going to include some video of me wearing it so that you can see it in a full 360 view. I believe I made the 4X size. I did change the neckline, and I did change the amount of short rows in the back. So I'm very happy with the fit, and I just think it's so cute, and it's the yoke pattern is super beautiful. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. So that's the first FO. And the second FO is my Juniper sweater by Sunflower Knit. So this is also cropped, knit in pieces. The back is this very pretty lace panel, and this is another one that I added quite a bit of modifications on, and if you're interested, you can click in this episode. So I changed the neckline shaping because there wasn't any. I did have some issues with the sleeves. They actually still do not match because I honestly don't know what I did. I've unknit it and reknit it twice, and they are so off, so I think I must have used the wrong needle, and so got a tighter gauge on one sleeve, but that wasn't the intention, so I don't know what I did. So they're a little uneven. I'm not stoked about that, but I have plenty of yarn, so if in the fall when it comes time to wear this baby a lot, I will amend it. Also included that video of a 360 view of it because I'm not 2D, and I think it's important, especially for larger bodies, to show you what it looks like at all angles. I also posted about that one on Instagram, so it's very possible that you have seen it before. Okay, now I feel like I knit those so long ago that I'm like kind of over it, and I haven't been able to wear them, so it's like not as exciting anymore. But there you have it. Those are my finished objects. And I have so many whips. I would say, and I've heard from a lot of other people, that my like knitting mojo has been pretty low. I described this in the last episode that like there's just so much going on in the world that knitting, which is usually where I kind of like ponder things, is just like not quite feeling like the right thing to do. And I haven't been able to concentrate very well on TV shows or movies. So yeah, I'm just feeling a little like bleh about knitting. And I say that, but then like I have also done quite a lot, so I don't know. So here's what I've been working on. So in the last episode, I talked about wanting to make a pair of socks out of this sort of on the surface boring looking color of Farmer's Daughter fibers. But it actually, why I picked it is because it has like bronze stellina in it, which I don't see very often. And I wanted to pair it with this leftover of Xoxo Yarn Co.'s BFL yarn, which I previously knit a pair of socks out of. And so I cast on for that and got this cute sock. So I have one done out of two. I decided to do 1x1 rib up top and then 2x2 rib down below. I'm not super stoked on the way that looks. It looks fine when it's stretched out. Let me put this on here. But not so much when it's like not blocked. So I really like having the rib down the cuff and down the top of the sock. Like I feel like the fit works so much better. So I played around with that and it's fine. I did a fish lips kiss heel, which doesn't fit my foot super well, but I think I mentioned, man, I like really can't remember what was in the episode that I last published and what was in that episode that I scrapped. So these are going to be a set of socks that I'm going to knit for my sister for Christmas because she is proving to be very knit worthy. So there's one of those, and then I also knit a skein of this yarn. I don't know the dyer, unfortunately. I just don't remember off the top of my head. And I don't have the tag. I bought it at Needles Up, which is an event that happens like before Rhinebeck every year, the day before the festival opens. And this is also sparkly. I guess I'm just like in a sparkly mood. But I love this colorway. But for this sock, instead of doing the 1x1 rib into 2x2, I did 1x1 into 3x1. So there's still ribbing, but I think it like not bleeds, but it transitions from the smaller rib to the bigger one a little bit nicer. And then I did a heel flap on here with a garter edge, and I really like this a lot better, but there's still some things that I want to change. So yeah, I'm kind of just working on like my ideal vanilla sock, and that's been fun. So I don't have pairs of either of these. I've just been doing one at a time because I need something like a little exciting, but not too exciting. And so I figured if I just like spend time knitting one sock and then like move on to doing the next socks, it might keep my interest a little bit more. I don't know. I'll update that. I'll update you on that. I usually don't have second sock syndrome, and that's like not what's happening. I'm just doing it in a little bit different of an order. And then I started a third pair with this, which is another skein of Farmer's Daughter fibers. I did sign up for her sock club that she's doing, and this was one of the months. I think it was maybe May's sock yarn. And what I was going to do was pair it with this skein of Mondim that I have in my stash, but like in theory they should work together, but when I started knitting it, this is almost too warm or something. I just wasn't like 100% sold on it being a great idea. So I have the cuff, I just have to figure out what yarn I'm going to pair it with, and I'm going to do the 1x1 rib and then move into the 3x1, and I'm just testing out a little sock pattern. Don't worry about it. But yeah, that's just been like a nice like project just to like stretch my muscles a little bit, but it's still fairly thoughtless knitting. And this yarn is so cool because it just kind of looks yellow from the get-go, but when I started knitting with it, there's like little bits of, yeah, there it goes. There's little bits of like very, very bright, like highlighter yellow, and then this general yellow is like more of an orangey, like goldenrod color. So yeah, it kind of surprised me, the depth of it, because on first glance it was sort of like, oh, cool, it's yellow yarn. But yeah, it's deeper than I thought based on first glance. So in the Slack group a couple weeks ago, I opened up a thread in our pattern recommendations channel about summer knits. I had spent some time on Ravelry just like browsing and seeing like what I was interested in, and I did find a couple patterns that I'm excited about and that I have yarn in my stash for. So yeah, I'm excited about those. I'll sort of keep that on the DL unless you want to go onto the Slack and see what I was talking about. But in my sort of like going through my stash and like seeing what kind of yarns I had, I found this half of a little like tank. So this, I mean, you can't see it. It is half of this pattern called Sayer. I'll post a picture here, by Julie Hoover for Purl Soho. So it is a paid pattern, unlike most of Purl Soho's patterns, but it was very easy. It's basically like a simple A-line. It's a little bit longer than what I would normally wear, but I'm like, because it's the A-line, I'm very excited about it. I knit this piece 2 years ago during the summer, while we were on a family vacation in Mexico. And I thought it would be perfect because it is this really special fiber from Sincere Sheep that I checked, and it doesn't look like she's dyeing anymore, but it's called Vernal, and it is a like raw silk and linen blend. So I cannot describe to you how light and lovely this fabric is, and it's held double. It's like a pretty light fingering weight. Here, let's see if I can get that to focus. Come on. Okay, there we go. It's very thin, and so you hold it double for this. So you get, and you knit it on sides US 7 needles. And so I knit this while we were on vacation, and then I got home and I was like, okay, it's time to cast on the next side. And as I was looking at the yarn that I had left, I had 2 skeins of this, and they're hefty skeins. They're like 700 yards or something because of how lightweight the fiber is. So I weighed how much this one was, and I weighed the yarn I had left, and it was very clear that I was not going to have enough to finish both sides. And I was so disheartened because I was really looking forward to like wearing this, and like I was like, yes, it's gonna be so good. And so I just like put it away. I had it in like a little Rubbermaid bin with like the needles and the pattern, and I was just like so bummed. And she doesn't dye it anymore, and you know, etc., etc. So while I was going through all my stuff looking for my next like summer project, I came across this, and I all of a sudden, like, it didn't occur to me at all, but I was like, I could probably do intarsia. I didn't want to color block it horizontally because I just like, that wasn't like the vibe I was going for. But I thought I could do intarsia and just like stripe it up the middle and just like split it in half and then follow the pattern. So did some swatching and started it, and this is what it's looking like right now. And this pattern is reversible, so one side is like a scoop neck, just like this, crew neck kind of shaping, and then the other side is a V-neck, and you can wear it either direction. I tend to prefer this like a scoop neck to a V-neck for me on the front, but so this could be the back, it could be the front, I don't know yet. I'm gonna keep trying. So yeah, I'm like very excited for it. So this is the linen silk, right? And this is just a 100% wool. It is a Swan's Island fingering that I got at Webb's during a clearance that they were doing. And I got it because it's like this natural sheep color. It's very, very soft. It's pretty thin. And I was like, oh, I'll dye over it. And I have dyed over it, but I also just like love the color. So I've used it in a number of different projects. I think I got like 10 skeins of it, and they were like very, very on clearance. So yeah, this is just another way that I'm using up this stash yarn, and I'm so excited for it to, you know, be done, and then I can kind of share with you the final project, because it lit a fire under me, and I definitely have been feeling not motivated. So this like felt good to have something to look forward to knitting wise. The last specifically knitting work in progress that I started and have again put down, so we'll see how long it takes to do this, is the beginning of a sleeve. So this, I'm very excited for this. So I have so much to say about this project. So this yarn is from the Friend D-stash that I did almost a year ago, maybe in like August of last year. I don't remember exactly, but it was with like my knitting friends that are local. I'll put a link because I did kind of highlight how it went. There's a really awesome stop motion of us just like decimating my full dining table full of yarn. But what we did was, there's stuff that ends up in your stash that you maybe don't want, and we just all brought whatever it was that we didn't want anymore. But people brought sweater quantities, people brought really nice hand-dyed yarn. It was such a big mix of stuff, so we just laid it all out on my dining room table and then walked around, and everyone just kind of took what they wanted. And anything that was left over I donated to a local thrift store. They were all super nice yarn, so I'm positive that you know, it made someone really happy. And yeah, we all kind of got new things without spending any money. So this was one of the yarns that I got. It is a farm yarn. The reason that Karen was giving it away partially is because it bleeds a lot, and I will say that that is definitely true. I did do a little swatch and put it in some vinegar, and that definitely helped because it's an acid dye, so the vinegar kind of helps set it. So I've been knitting it not super regularly. Also, this swatch is like way too loose, so so anyway, that's the story behind the yarn. I have 2 full skeins of this. I think this was partially used, but it's very, it's like, it's, how do I say, it's not merino soft. If wool bugs your neck, I think it would bug your neck. But like to the hand, it's like toothy and just like it'll last, I think, a long time, and keep the wearer very warm. And this is where I explained that this is not for me. So I have so much yarn that I'm like, I'm gonna knit Kay a sweater. But I hadn't haven't had like the sort of motivation. And when I was feeling kind of stuck about my knitting projects, I pulled out some of the patterns that I have saved for when it is time to knit Kay a sweater. And this is one of them. So I want to talk about this pattern and the book that it comes from. So Pamela Wynn is known, I think, largely for her like revisioning of an Elizabeth Zimmerman pattern called the February Lady Sweater. And she put out this really amazing collection of patterns a few years ago that's called Handsome, and it's called Man Sweaters for Every Body. And why this is so cool is because there are, I think 6 to 8 patterns in it that are like kind of traditional masculine style sweaters, like a college kind of cardigan with a big shawl collar, some simple ones that are just kind of like raglan, and the one that I am doing is a Henley. And she has a lot of notes in it for how to make adjustments for smaller bodies. So this is like, whereas I have trouble finding clothes that fit me because I am a plus size woman, Kay has trouble finding clothes that fit them because they are a petite, like AFAB person who likes masculine clothes. So a lot of the time what ends up happening is we find clothes for them like in the kids department, which, like, first of all, there's not a lot of places that we can go in person to go shopping for both of us. And second of all, it's just like doesn't always feel great to be shopping in the kids section. So first of all, she has a lot of size, like there's a very large size range for each sweater as opposed to like a traditional like men's size range. And then on top of that, she has wide and narrow shoulder like adjustments. So a lot of clothes on Kay, even if they fit like the chest circumference, the shoulder seam is like way too far out and the arms are too long, and like then also the length of the torso is too long. So she gives a lot of information to make sure that the sweater fits, and modifications for like if you have a gut, how to kind of like add darts in it to make sure that it's not like too tight over certain parts of your body. So there's a super diverse range of models in it. You know, it's just seeing like queer representation in knitting patterns is so nice. I can't express it enough. Like just on the basis that I want to support this so that people know that there's definitely a market for it. So the pattern that I ended up choosing is called Rashan, and it is again a Henley. It has these nice garter stripes up the sleeve, and it's bottom up, which I love because that means I can use the sleeve as my gauge swatch. So yeah, I got started on that, and Kay is really excited and I'm really excited. So I'm excited. I look forward to kind of sharing my progress on that and sharing my experience of knitting out of that book. So I'll link everything that I talk about below, and yeah, I hope that's helpful for someone because it's freaking hard to get stuff to fit right. I have one more yarny project to share with you, and then I'm gonna switch into sewing. So a while ago now, I talked about crochet blankets, and I had started a crochet blanket. I think this was in November, so about 6 months ago, and I had really was like super gung-ho on it, pulled out all this yarn. I shared the story of my last crochet blanket, and I'll link that episode up here so you can take a look. And like, this was another thing that, like, in the mindset that I have been in regarding knitting, it was like the perfect thing to tackle. So it's this big crochet blanket. It's pretty big. And I really wanted it to kind of transition into pink and then into green because it matches the color scheme of our living room. And the other one I made was purple, which I love, but just like doesn't match at all. So I am on the last color of this, which I am stoked about. And this, all of these pieces were leftovers or full skeins that I hadn't used yet, held double with one another, so fingering weight. And then this last big section of green is this Quince & Co. Owl. This is 3 skeins wound up on each other. It's very possible that I'm gonna go and find, like, depending on how big the border ends up being, I want it to be fairly substantial, so if it's not looking as big as I want it to be when I finish up, I might buy some more of that. But otherwise, that's coming along great. Been working on that. Don't think I'll be touching it soon since the humidity is starting to ramp up here. But yeah, that's another project that's almost done. My camera ran out of battery, so if there's like a funny cut or if the lighting is a little bit different, that's why. But it's kind of nice because we're cutting into the sewing portion. Oh my god. First of all, I wanted to mention what I'm wearing, which is an Ashton top, which is a pattern from Helen's Closet. It's like a staple in my wardrobe every summer. I recently pulled them all out from my summer storage, and yeah, I like can't wash them enough for the amount that I want to wear them. So I did make another one, which is a little black and white gingham version, and it's 100% linen. So what I really like about this pattern is that even for my size, which is the size 30, the largest size, I can get the whole shirt out of 1 yard. That is the non-lined version, and making my own bias tape either out of the same fabric, that requires a little bit more finesse, either with the same fabric or a contrasting fabric. So yeah, I've been doing that. The gingham one is super cute. I put some like tattooed mermaids on the bias tape, like use that fabric. So it's kind of like a cute little, like, sneaky cute thing that I did. But yeah, I've been wearing that one. I also, for that one and what I'll continue to do going forward, I added like an inch just to the front part, and then I curved it to the normal side seam point. So I sort of made it into more of a curve, but when I wear it, it makes the hem lay flat. So I had to adjust the pattern piece for also the, like, oh my god, I'm like losing the word. It's not the lining. Instead of folding under the hem, you attach another piece. So I basically had to edit. Oh my god, I'm not on a computer. I had to redraw out that like little inner hem. Wow. If anyone can think of what that word is that I'm trying to think of, I'd love that. Yeah, so I've been wearing my Ashton top a lot. I also made my first pair of Skullthorpe pants, which is a pattern by Muna and Broad. I think I'm actually going to do a whole video on that process because I'm actually wearing them now. They're like in this cool green color, and I really, really like them. There's a built-in full tummy adjustment into the pattern, so that's like exactly what I need for pants to fit. I've made a couple other pants to like frankly disappointing results, but these ones fit. I do have to make some adjustments for my next one, such as tapering the leg and like maybe taking some fabric out at the back. I have to do a little bit of experimenting. So yeah, I think I am going to make a full video about that process, so I won't talk too much about it now. But yeah, I've been living in them. They're super comfortable. They have huge pockets. I like can't say enough, especially if you're plus size and having a hard time finding a pants pattern that will fit. And if you don't fit into their size range that they have posted, they will basically grade it up for you with no additional cost. So again, I'll link them down below. They're a really awesome company. And I'm very excited for like the confidence that they're giving me in making pants. So that's super cool. So those are the two garment sewing projects that I have going on, or have had gone on. And the last thing that I want to mention, I showed a brief clip of a pillow that I had made out of a quilt pattern that I was beginning to embark on, and it ended up being a little smaller than the squares called for, and I was worried after I had done that that square that I had cut all of one of the pattern pieces the wrong size, but it turns out I didn't. It was just that one that I was working with. So I've gone ahead and made two more, and now they've been folded up so they don't look as pretty. But okay, this is one. So this is a quilt block. I actually can't remember the name of the designer. I'll make sure to link it below. And this is the other one. So when my mom was visiting in October, I think she was here in November. When my mom was visiting, we talked about wanting to make a quilt together, but like I'll make a quilt, I'll make my own and she'll make her own, but we'll do the same pattern. And it's been a slow process. I ended up cutting out a bunch of the squares over and rectangles over Christmas break, and then they kind of sat, and then I made that one block and I was like, oh no, I messed something up, and then I decided to kind of pick it up, and it's so much fun putting together the pattern pieces. I've made a couple quilts before, but not, I'm not a professional. I would say I'm a very novice. I am not, like, knitting works really well for me because I'm not very precise. That's like totally not how I approach, I don't know. Like, if something's off, it's okay in knitting, and with quilting it causes some more issues than if you're off a stitch in knitting. So it's kind of challenging for me to stay as precise as I need to be, or as close to precise, because let's be honest, doesn't go so great. So yeah, that being said, what I love about quilting is the putting together of colors and like picking the colors and sort of watching the palette kind of grow, which sometimes with knitting is a little bit harder because I don't tend to make knitted objects that are so out there in the color scheme of outfits. So quilting kind of lets me get that, like, that interest and desire out of the way. So yeah, I've been really enjoying that project, and it's like another small thing that I can work on that doesn't require a lot of attention and focus. So I'm feeling very grateful for that. Yeah, so that's quite a bit of stuff that I've been working on, even though it feels like I'm not very motivated. It's clear to me that I am spending time sitting and making more than I realize. So that's kind of a nice realization. And I think time is coming to a close. Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the Emtothethird Knitting Podcast. You know, I come to you from a place of solidarity for sure. These are very uncertain and like scary times, frankly. But I have hope that there's going to be change on the other side of it. And I hope I can offer support and some comfort to all of you who are feeling the same. If you're really feeling like you're missing a crafting community, I really can't stress enough how much we'd love to have you in the Slack channel. The link is down below to sign up. And yeah, I just keep on keeping on. I'm here with you. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
And I was built to roam, my darling, and so were you. It's only fair. But when I come home, my darling, I will know, 'cause you'll be